All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is a video tutorial on how to make a graph using Google Spreadsheets. So we're going to be working with line graphs throughout the year. So that's what I'm going to be showing you. So first thing we need to do is we need to open up a spreadsheet. All right. So the best way is from your study guide. If you click on File right here, you can go to New, and it'll automatically take you to Spreadsheets. So go ahead and click on Spreadsheets right here. And when you do that, it's going to open up a spreadsheet, a blank one right here, right? Some of you guys have used Excel. It's very similar to Excel. There's a few different buttons here. But now what we need to do is we need to add in our data so that way we can graph it. All right, so when we go back to our study guide, this is what I want all of you guys to be able to graph. So what you're going to do is you're going to highlight it, and we're just going to copy it, and we're going to paste it. So it's pretty simple, right? We can just copy and paste things over here. That way you don't have to type it all in. So that way it's a little bit easier and faster. Okay, so once we're here now, we have our data. We can now graph it. So the first thing that we do is we always highlight what we want to graph. Okay, so there's two ways to actually insert a chart. You can go insert and go chart like this, or the other option is you'll notice that there is right here another kind of a icon that does that. I always go insert chart. It's just a little bit easier for me to do it that way. Okay, and then you'll be able to make a graph like that. Now, let me show you what happens when you don't highlight, right, your stuff. So let's say that I make this graph and I type in all of my information and then I go insert and I go chart. You'll see it say no data. And the reason why is because you never told the computer or the spreadsheets what you wanted to graph. Okay, so it's really, really important that you always highlight, all right, what you want. So now I'm going to get out of this again, and I'm going to delete it. And I'm going to make sure I highlight it. I'm going to go insert chart. Okay, there you go. I got data. Now the other thing too that might happen to you, right, is, and I put this in here because I know that up to this point I've always been saying, hey, where are your units, your units, your units. However, when you're graphing, if you go to make a graph and you have numbers with letters, you're also going to get no data. And that's because just the Google Spreadsheets doesn't understand numbers with data. It gets confused. So whenever you're graphing, just make sure that you just have numbers, okay? And then you also have your headers. I'll explain why it's so important that you include your headers, because it makes your graph really, really simple to make. Okay, so all right, so now we're here. Let's get back to the chart. So you'll see it says setup, and basically up here it just says all this information. Really, the only part that you need to look at is the chart, because this is where you get to select what type of chart you want. Okay, it'll give you some suggestions. It'll give you all these different choices that you want. We're always going to use a line graph, so you're going to just click on that. Okay, now you'll notice that my dots went away. I'll show you how to do that. So from here, what I'm going to show you is how to customize everything. Okay, so now that we have that, so you're going to go to customize right here, all right, and so on. Now, one of the things that you'll notice, it'll say is charts and titles and axis. What's cool about having your headers, Google is really, really smart. So if I include my headers right here, it automatically creates my title, it creates my y-axis, and it creates my chart title for my x-axis. It's already there. If I don't include this, it'll be blank, and it'll be your responsibility to include all that information in here. Now, you can do it one of two ways. I can actually click in here, and I can kind of edit stuff from here, right? I can click on it, and I can actually do that. The other place I can go is right here, right? I can customize. If I want to change my vertical title, I can go here, and I can actually change it here. And when I do that, it'll change it over here. Okay, so I can do that. So it's either option is fine. It doesn't really matter. Okay. The other thing I forgot to mention is this. Now, realistically, I usually never ask kids to change colors and do all that kind of stuff. So if you really, really wanted to, obviously you can change colors and do all this information. But I always stick to the simple ones, which is the white. It's a lot easier for me to read. Okay, so I'm asking you guys to do that. Right? If you want to make your own graphs and make them colorful, great. But for this class, I would rather you keep it this way. Okay. All right, so now we're going to click on series. This is where we include our points. All right, so right now, if you look at it, right, our dots are not there. And you'll see why, because it says point size right here, and it'll say none. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to include dots, and I can make them any size that I want. So if I make them really small, you can barely see them. So I usually pick 10 because that way I can see the dots really, really nicely. So I can see my 4 points that I have graphed because there's 4 rows right here. Okay, I can change the thickness. I usually keep it like this. All right, from here, all right, I'm going to go, and I can kind of skip legend. It's not a big deal. All right, I'm going to change my horizontal and Y. And I don't really like the fact that they call it horizontal and vertical. I'd rather have them call it X and Y axis. So now I'm going to get to my Y axis, or X axis, I'm sorry. All right, one of the things that I don't like about Google is they try to fit this entire graph into like this magnified area, right? I kind of like it where the last point isn't at the very like corner. That's just me. And one way I can do that is by changing what number it goes to. So right now my maximum x-axis is 3, right? If I just click on 4, it'll automatically make it so it moves over. So now my x-axis, I have a little bit more, right? I still don't like my y-axis, right, being all the way at the very, very top. So what I can do is I can click on that, and I can go to my vertical axis, right? And I can make that minimum 7 since it's at 6 right now. And that way I can have a little bit of extra space after my graph, which is what I prefer. You don't have to do that, but it is something that I like to do, and it's something for you to kind of know and help you out when you guys are doing all this information. Okay? So now I'm done with that. Grid lines you can kind of skip. It just means that you get more grid lines, right, on here. So that's, again, it's your prerogative if you want to do it. If you want to click around to see what it does, great. All right, I'm not really going to show you that part. Okay, so now that I'm done with this, now what I need to do is I need to take this graph and I need to put it into my study guide, right? So I'm going to click here, and you should see these 3 little dots. And when I click on those 3 little dots, it's going to say, hey, do you want to do all these things? I'm going to click on copy chart. Right? Once I copy it, I can go back here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to now put it in here. And now I can just paste it. Right? Now it's going to ask you to do these things. Link to spreadsheet means that if I click on my graph, it'll link back to my spreadsheets. I don't really care for that. I always just click on paste unlinked, and I click on paste, and there you go. I've just made my graph, and I put it in there. Okay? So you're going to have to do this several times, whether it's in the study guide or in the labs. So if you ever forget how to do it, you can always come back to this. Okay?